Hello and welcome to Insights, the podcast with your host, Joe Pane. Join me in this deep exploration of our personal journeys from ambition to meaning, where we stop living life fast and start living life deep. This is a journey of waking up and realizing that our lives have never been about us, but about others. True success leaves positive ripple effects on other souls. I believe that success needs to be redefined from our own personal ambitious endeavors to be redefined as the value that we leave and give to others around us. Join me now as we begin this journey to deeper connections, even more fulfillment, some fun, curiosity, life, love, and all good things. Your deeper journey from ambition to meaning starts right now. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 63. Joe Pane here. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Insights podcast. So in this episode, let's explore what I call how to calibrate your emotional compass. So by emotional compass, what I'm referring to is our values. So let's hop straight in. I was going to say, how are you? How are you going? How are you finding it all? So I hope you're all doing well. At the time of this recording, I can't believe we're at the halfway mark of 2021. There you go. There's my banter. So now let's hop into the content of this episode here today. So emotional compass, that's how I define our values, the ultimate emotional compass. And what I want to talk about here is the correlation or the relationship that our values seem to have with uncertainty. And I'll expand upon that in a moment. But first of all, let's just be clear in our mind's eye what a value actually is. So the reason why I define it as an emotional compass is because the very essence, the very core ingredient of all values is that a value is emotionally driven. It's been said that a value is an emotional state that we want to experience on a consistent basis. I cannot recall for the heck of me who said that, but someone said that. It's very elegant. I'll say that again. It's an emotional state that we want to experience on a consistent basis. Two key words there, obviously emotional. The other key word is consistency. And when we are living in alignment to our values, we feel great. We feel emotionally well. We feel emotionally fit. We feel emotionally healthy. And it's very, very difficult, if not, I dare say, impossible, that when you're feeling emotionally well and healthy and fit, it's virtually impossible to experience, anxieties or stresses or even depression for that matter. Now, I'm saying that, of course, with the most profound respect to anyone listening here who has, suffered at the hands of anxiety or depression. And it's a very complex issue. There's no doubt about that. But an insight I want to share with you here in this particular episode is that what I have found in life, vicariously through clients and directly through my own experience, is that the more aligned and more consistent we are in living our values, the better we feel, and the potentiality for depression or anxiety is significantly reduced when we're living in alignment. Now, how does this relate to uncertainty? Because this is the correlation I want to marry up. And then I'll talk more about that in a second. And then what I'm going to do is, so what I found is over time, so many people aren't clear on what their values are. So I'm going to give you some pointers in terms of some questions to reflect on that I trust and hope will help you accurately discover your values. And that's the key distinction right there, to discover your values. Your values are actually contained within you. They're in your heart, they're in your soul, they're in your unconscious. They're already there in your heart. So they're there to be unveiled. It's literally, values to the human condition is almost like sun to the earth. We don't have to create it. We're not creating the sun. It's the ego that might want to create the sun, but the reality is that the ego is just like the moon. It's just simply reflecting the light that's coming from the source, which is the sun itself. And our values are part of that behavioral source, if you like. So as in SOURCE, not source as the source you put in your food, right? So when it comes to uncertainty and values, well, look, something because this particular podcast episode has been inspired by a brief conversation I was having with my wife just the other day, literally a few days ago. You might have heard me say this a few times over the last 60 odd episodes, where a conversation with my wife inspires a podcast episode, like the one with the beach, watching the beach and what I learned from watching the beach. That was all from my wife. Anyway, what we were talking about, how the last 18 months, we have never been more clear on who we are, what our values are, what we represent, and we've never had the clarity of our priorities and what life is about for us. And that's fascinating because uncertainty, when it comes along, and it's currently, at the time of this recording, it's June 2021. Obviously, we're coming off the year last year of 2020 with all the hoo-ha that carried on there, with all the stuff that happened, and is continuing to happen in varying degrees. Is that there was an acute dose of uncertainty. In fact, we had, ironically, in 2020, we had uncertainty about uncertainty. We didn't know how long we were going to be locked down for. We didn't know how long we were going to be shut out of our offices for. We didn't know, how long these restrictions were going to last, and all those things. We were in a tunnel of uncertainty without any clue as to how long that tunnel was. That's pretty scary, for a lot of people. Pretty scary. So, and what uncertainty does is it amplifies who you are. And a significant component of who we are, you and I are, is made up of our values, our emotional compass. Our emotional compass directs us in our decision making, in clarifying our priorities, in understanding ourselves better, in making sense of the world. And it's also an avenue to how we create meaning. Very, very powerful, our emotional compass. And if we don't follow that compass, we literally get lost. It's like not following a compass if you're lost in the forest. If you're not following the compass, if you're not following true north or whatever your true north is, you're going to get lost. And it's the same in life with our emotional compass. But the thing is, if we don't know what our emotional compass actually is made up of, if we don't know what it is, then how do we find our way out of our metaphorical forest? Great question. So I've got some pointers which we'll come to in a moment. So the uncertainty amplifies. And the distinction I want to share with you around this is that uncertainty does one of two things. It either amplifies confusion or it amplifies clarity. Because if we're emotionally unclear, in other words, if we're completely confused or foggy about what our values actually are, what can actually happen is it actually fuels more confusion and fog. And so uncertainty comes along and then amplifies that confusion. And that's the doorway. It's one of the many doorways to stresses, anxieties, depressions, difficult times. So, it's been said in the space of human behavior that often confusion is the precursor to a breakthrough. Well, let's hope it is, because in a lot of cases, as we have seen from what we understand of reading, different sources of media, etc., a lot of people have had a really, really tough time energetically and, more importantly, mentally, in the last year and a half. And this is one way of perhaps maybe, explaining what has happened. So I'll say that again. Uncertainty either amplifies one of the two ends of the spectrum of emotion. It either amplifies confusion or it amplifies clarity. Clarity of what? Clarity of what we are, what our values are, and what we stand for. And so this is really important. So in the last 20 months or so, this is what Silvana, my wife, and I, Silvana's my wife, this is what we were talking about, just driving home literally the other day from a walk that we had together. I was just saying to her, I've never been this clear on what matters. And what happens is that when you're clear on your priorities, your days are taken care of. When you're clear on your priorities, you just feel great. Like I was just saying a few moments ago, when you're feeling emotionally healthy and well, you can handle more uncertainty. You can handle more of the mystery, or you can handle more of, whatever's going on in your life in a very healthy way. And just like a radio station, you can't be tuned in to more than one radio station at a time. You're either tuned into Emotional Health FM and Fitness FM, or you're tuned into some other station called Emotional Instability FM, or whatever you want to call it, FM. So in other words, whilst we are living in our mind and soul aligned to our values, it's like a particular frequency of radio station. And we cannot hear other radio stations when we're tuned into that. It's like what's been said many times is you can't experience anger or fear of any kind. Anger is a projection of fear. We can't experience any of those things whilst in a state of gratitude or joy or emotional wellness, if that makes sense. So now what I want to do is I want to give you some quick tips on how to observe yourself in a very practical way to notice what patterns might be playing out in your life, good patterns that give us clues in terms of what perhaps our values actually are. So here's a couple of key tips. So first one, I've got about, what have I got about? I think I've got about 5, I think, something like that. So notice any patterns of where or what you consistently spend your money on. So for example, so the key word is consistency. So in other words, what are the themes in where and how, not so much how, but where you spend your money, what do you spend your money on? So for example, with me, I spend, many hundreds of dollars, between $100 and maybe $400, whatever, something like that per month on anything to do with, my nutrition, my supplementation, running gear, a running magazine, or, any products and services related to the energy and my body, right? So that to me, and that's a consistency that's been happening now for many, many years. So that reflects my value in health and vitality. So health and vitality is absolutely one of my top values, right? It's my number one value. So health and vitality is a core component, therefore, of my emotional compass. By the way, your emotional compass, your values list, it's not something that is like 17,000 values. I'm being facetious here, of course. It's not about creating a list of 12 or 15 values. All you need to know are your top 5. That's plenty, because they play the rule. If you think about this, values are like Russian dolls or the Matryoshka dolls, where your top value is like the mother doll and the other values are contained within it. So when you get beyond 5 Russian dolls, it gets pretty small, the doll. Does it make sense? So the 7th or 8th ranked value is quite obscure and almost insignificant compared to the top 5, especially your top 3. So another way of noticing your values, right, is notice the patterns of how you consistently spend your time. Who you spend your time with and what you do with your time and what you talk about with the time that you have. Look out for any themes. So for example, I know that I spend a lot of time, listening and reading, different texts of, different stuff to do with philosophy. And I've just recently, my curiosity into history has begun, which is fascinating. I've never been interested in history, but I'm becoming interested in history because I think there's a lot to learn from history, as so many smart people have said to me for so many years. And so for me, listening or spending time reading something of to do with philosophy or spiritual development or consciousness, to me, I find this fascinating. And this reflects my other value, which is wisdom. I adore wisdom as a value. I love it. So another pointer or tip, notice where in your life you are most organized. And I mean consistently and effortlessly. So I'm talking about an area of your life that you're organized in that doesn't take much conscious effort or energy. You just do it because it's important to you. So this is an area of your life which, as I said, doesn't take much energy. So for example, you might be really well organized. Like I happen to be really effortlessly well organized in my finances. Now, the word organized and me, if you talk to my wife, do not go into the same sentence. But as far as, and she would agree here with that, plus she would agree that I am organized with finances, because with the finances in terms of, running my own super fund with my business, investments, reading about money and where to put it, and, managing loans and buying property, all this sort of stuff. So, and what this is, it actually reflects a value that's connected to money. But money is not an ends value. It's a means value. It's a vehicle. So then I ask myself the question, well, what does money mean to me? And to me, it's peace. And peace is one of my top 5 values. So that's what it means for me. Of course, to somebody else, money means something completely and utterly differently. To someone else, it might mean, adventure might be a value of yours. So money, having money and organizing yourself in finances might mean that it gives you more adventures. So if that's a value, that's what it is. For me, it's a sense of peace. Another pointer is observe what absorbs your mind and your conversations most of the time. What do you spend most of your time thinking about? I heard the other day that in a study somewhere, I don't have the reference, unfortunately, that we spend 30% of our day minimum thinking about what to eat next. Now, apparently that's true. And I was thinking, gee, do I spend that much time? Probably do. I don't know. Interesting, isn't it? But other than that, other than food, what else takes up most of your time in your mind? So have a think about that. And the final tip I want to share with you here is where in your life are you organically, effortlessly, consistently most reliable? Most reliable. So, for example, you might be most reliable in your commitment to your art classes because these bring you great joy. So this could be because you value creativity or you value joy. So that's how you think about these. These. What have I said to you? I think 5 points. So and there's actually 16 of these. So if you wanted to dive into that, you can just simply go to my website, and over there on joepane.com.au, you can download the Emotional Fitness Builder, which is a brand new document. You'll love it. So check that out. So I hope these tips, contribute to you gaining more clarity, to be at the clarity end of the spectrum when it comes to uncertainty. Our emotions are like a behavioral lodestone. The lodestone is what actually contributed significantly to the invention of the compass, because the lodestone is a naturally occurring stone that's quite rare that naturally points to north when it hangs from a piece of string or a piece of rope. It's quite fascinating, and so a lodestone to a compass is what our emotional compass is to our lives. So I hope you found this fascinating. I hope you found this valuable. That's most important, and that it adds value and practical value as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. Deeply appreciated, and looking forward to reconnecting with you in the next episode. Thanks again. Thanks for your support, and thanks for your 5-star reviews. And if you haven't done a 5-star review and you genuinely feel in your heart of hearts that this is a 5-star podcast, would love for you to head over to Apple and do that. I think on last count, we're just under 100 5-star reviews, which is very, very pleasing. So thanks again, everyone. Or thanks again to you specifically listening to this, wherever you may be in the world. Enjoy your morning, enjoy your afternoon, enjoy your evening. Thank you so much. Bye for now. I'm Joe Pane, and you've been listening to Insights, the podcast. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. You can now follow my insights on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to being with you again very soon in the next episode of Insights, the podcast.